So here's another video. Today I'm building pallets, and again, you don't need to see my face, but hi. These are commonly known as a migratory pallet, or a two-way pallet. These take two beehives side by side. The two boxes sit side by side in this, what's called a U-clip. This is a U-clip here. It's about 2 inches in outside width there. And it's designed to take 7/8 thick box material. I'm in Canada, and what some of our American friends might not realize is the standard for Canadian boxes is 7/8 thick pine. You can probably see that that's a little thicker than your 3/4 inch thick box material. This U-clip here makes the boxes sit tight together. Some people find that can build up moisture, those two boxes tight together, rot the box. Sometimes they say ants come up in here and live between the boxes when they're tight together. So to get away from that, some people make their pallets, they use what's called a W-clip. And this is made for 3/4 inch box material. See, it doesn't fit down properly over a 7/8 box. I don't use these, I just have this as a sample. So you can use a W clip, that gives a little wider distance between the boxes. And you can see that gives a little space between the boxes to help them stay dry, maybe help you shoo the ants and whatnot out of there. I don't know. I don't use these, I don't have a problem with that. My boxes are, for the most part, they're wax dipped, so I don't have moisture issues with that. They don't absorb moisture as a painted box might. So for all those reasons anyway, I use a U-clip made for 7/8 box on these two-way pallets. Say two-way pallets, sometimes people use four-way pallets. They put two hives facing one way, two hives facing the other. I've seen people have hives facing sideways. You know, you build them for whatever you want, however you're going to manage your equipment and your bees and your apiary. So I'll show you a few features of this pallet. This is a used one, obviously. The bees have already used this one. I don't know if this is 2 years old, so it's got two seasons behind it. She's looking a little worse for wear here. But the wax, you know, this wood gets all gray and black and whatnot, but the wax dipping rids the wood of the moisture and whatnot, so they should last a long time. All of the shims around the edge and in the middle, they're all 3/4 inch high, so that's nice. You can use standard lumber to make, you know, this is 2 inches wide, but it's just 3/4 inch wide, so high. All of this around the outside is all 3/4 inch high. I drill 3/4 inch hole in the back of each, the bottom of each hive, just as a water drain. Don't really know if it works, to be honest. The bees usually plug it up, so I don't know if maybe they don't want it there. If they don't want it, they can plug that hole pretty easily. This pallet, I actually have a block across the entrance because I was using this pallet not for bees. I was using this pallet for honey. When I use the pallets for honey pull, then I'll set that box of honey, that super, right on here. I can put a lid on that in the apiary. Keeps robbing to a minimum. They can't get in under here to rob the honey and whatnot, so that works really nicely. I can simply take those two screws out, and then this is a beehive pallet. It's a pallet with an integrated bottom board, basically, is what you're looking at. So you can see the construction is 3/4 inch plywood, 2x4s, and 1x4s. Here. 1x4s doesn't matter, could be 1x3s, could be 1x5s. This is irrelevant. The space here to here is relevant, and I'll show you why. So I mentioned the space from the front of the pallet or the back is important. This pallet actually is my first year pallet. I've changed the dimensions a little, but this same principle applies. So this is one of my migratory covers. Now this is all upside down so you can see it, but just pretend that this this cover is on top of a colony, and I want to put this pallet on top of that colony or on a box of honey supers or something like that. So now you can kind of see the logic going on here. So that pallet locks right in to the lid below it. So when you're moving bees on your truck or trailer, if you're carrying bees with your forklift or tractor, you're stacking bees in your bee barn, such as like I do, those lock together. So they can slide sideways, but they slide a long way sideways before they fall off. Ask me how I know that. But they're not going to slide front and back. They're locked in. So that's kind of the whole point of these, you know, the dimensions of these cleats on the top of the lid and how this is laid out. You know, normally you wouldn't set your runner back like that, because if this pallet's laying on the floor and you step on it on the end, it'll flip over because there's no support here. So you got to watch yourself. Don't step on these if they're laying on the floor. You have to step in a few inches. So this is my third year building pallets, and I've changed them twice. I'm building them differently this year than I've built them in the past two, and in a very slight way. And that difference is this front to back dimension and exactly where this runner is. I'll try and explain. My boxes are 20 1/8 inches from front to back. And when I put that cover on, okay, since this material is 3/4 inch, this material is 3/4 inch. Now I'm dealing with 21 5/8 from front to back. And where that's important is when I'm loading my trailer to move my bees to an outyard, or I'm loading my trailer at an outyard to bring the honey back here, I'll put this little pallet on the trailer, and then I can put 4 of these across my trailer. I load from the side. So I'll put 1 or 2, and then I'll put the third, and I'll push the other 2 across the trailer. The problem with this pallet is the lid on the next box contacts this first. So you can see what it's a problem. I don't want the next pallet pushing on that lid. It's not only important when I'm loading the trailer, it's also important when I'm strapping the load onto the trailer. When I run a strap up over the boxes and the next box, there's either a space. If there's a space, it'll tend to push the boxes toward one another. If there's a space between the pallets, then it puts more stress on the box and the lid than I want. So what I've done is I've devised dimensions for my pallet that equal the dimensions of my lid. So this lid, in theory, if I do everything right, this lid is 21 5/8 from here to here. Let's give it a measure. Let's see how good I am. And that is bang on the money. 21 5/8. So what I want is my pallet to be 21 5/8 as well. This pallet is not. You can see how this lid hangs over the back. The pallet is flush with the back of the box. Okay. Second year I built pallets, I compensated for this, but I overcompensated. So I got away from the lids pushing on each other, but I went too far. I arbitrarily extended this 1 inch. So now my problem is there's a gap between those. When I strap them, now the lids want to pull in toward each other, and yet the pallets are stationary, so that's a problem. So what I want is I want my pallet and my lid, outside dimensions, to be identical. So that's what I'm doing with my new pallets that I'm building this year. Unfortunately, I'm not building very many this year, but at least I've fixed the problem and I won't continue with that. And so that's the logic behind the dimensions and why I build the pallets the way I do. I didn't really mention why 3/4 inch high shim here. I've noticed that a lot of bottom boards use 3/4 of an inch for a dimension there. I used to use an oxalic acid vaporizer, sublimator is the right term, the wand type that you slide in the entrance, and those require 3/4 of an inch to get that wand in. So that's really why I adopted 3/4 inch shim for that. Also, one other logic behind some of the dimensions here is the width of this entrance. And again, remember, this is a temporary block because I'm using this as a honey skid. So you take this block out, now you've got a 12-inch entrance. So every one of my 100+ beehives has a 12-inch entrance. So what I do is I'll cut little wedges out of wood. I'll show you those in another video. I'll cut a 9-inch piece of wood, slide that in there for an entrance reducer. Now every one of my beehives has a 3-inch entrance. They're all the same. I have little folded up screens that I use when I move my bees. They're all exactly 12 inches long. All I need is 32 of those. I go to my yard, I've got 32 hives. I put them in, Bob's your uncle, I'm on my way home. So that really is kind of the features of this pallet. I really like it. You can't very easily lift it by yourself. 2 people can lift this pretty easily with 2 beehives on it. But the point in my beekeeping is I want to make sure that I don't lift things as much as possible. I want to get away from lifting things. So having my beehives on these pallets, the downside is I can't lift them. The upside is I can't lift them. So I use my little tractor with my forks to lift these, move them around. Saves the back. Doesn't do much for this part of you though, I tell you. So that's Migratory Pallets.